Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sean and Sax show.
Welcome.
So last week's episode, typically on Tuesday, we release the podcast on Tuesday. What, like in the morning, right? Early in the morning? 5 a.m. We release the podcast at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And normally, what would you say the average is, babe? We get tagged in a couple dozen, you'd say? Mm-hmm. A few dozen posts. Right, between Sax and I. A few dozen people will typically tag me on a Tuesday after we've released the episode. And people are like, oh, this is great, Sean and Sax, da-da-da, and they'll tag me. I think that I got tagged in one, maybe two posts.
Same here.
So we were just talking about this before we turned on the mics, and we almost didn't. Let me rephrase that. I almost canned the show, meaning we almost didn't release it. I texted Bryce and our executive producer and said, dude, send it to me. Because I was going to listen to it. And I don't normally listen to our podcast.
Ever.
I don't ever. I have a phobia. And maybe it's not a phobia. It's not the right word. I just have something about listening to my own videos or my own podcasts or whatever.
I think it's just you don't want to critique it.
I do. I'm very, very hypercritical of myself. Mm-hmm. But I was like, yo, send me this one. Because it was on my mind, like, over it. And I was like, dude, we talked about some gnarly shit. Like, is that really what we want to talk about? Is that how we want to talk about it, right? Because what was going through my mind is like, there's the politically correct way of saying things, and talking about body parts is like, your vagina is a vagina. It's not your pussy, and your penis is your penis, actually. Not your dick or your cock, right? And I just was like, real talk, I was super, I don't want to say nervous, but I was like, this was a big episode.
I've never seen Sean hesitate to launch anything.
Yeah. So normally I'm like, fuck it, let's go, ship it. But, so anyways, it was really funny because we went to New York. We were in New York over the weekend, and I was really concerned about it. And I kept talking to Sax about it. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, maybe it was just me. But we were talking about it, and the thought process was, you know, look, there's a lot of people. I mean, the number one and number two causes of divorce are money and sex. Sex and money. I don't know which one's the number one, but, you know, look that up, Bryce. See what's the number one cause of divorce. I think
marriage
it's probably
is the number one cause of divorce.
Marriage is the number one, but it's either sex or money. And so the moral of the story is, there's a really funny part to this, is obviously, like, we are very, very, very open, and we committed to be very open on this podcast, and not just when we're talking about sex, but we're talking about co-parenting and our relationship and our love and our fear and everything that we've got going on in our life. And that was like a really, what is it?
The number one reason for divorce is actually infidelity.
Infidelity?
And number two is finances.
Yeah.
I feel like infidelity falls into sex,
that's
though.
Sex.
Lack of communication.
Yeah. It's sex. Sex is the number one.
If infidelity,
because if you're banging somebody else, it means your sex life sucks, which is sex, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Intimacy in general is
right,
not
sex.
thriving.
Yeah, sex, connection, the whole thing. Anyways, we were talking about it, and it was like, I knew that one of the things I was afraid of was my mom or like my family listening to this.
Joan.
And no shit, I kid you not. If you listen to it, you'll know what we're talking about. If you haven't, then this is a good reason for you to go fucking listen to the last episode.
Gosh.
Was it episode 24 or whatever? Anyways, it was Sex with Sean and Sax is the title. You can't miss it. But we ended up landing the other night, on Tuesday night, and as we land, I turn my phone on, and I get all these text messages, and I've got one from my mom, and it's a picture of like heaven's gates and doves flying out of it. And initially I was like, fuck, I was thinking like, somebody's dying. Like, that's like heaven.
It's like, why does my mom
who went to heaven?
Shit?
Mom, did your cat die? Like, did somebody die? Who's gone to heaven? And all of a sudden I was sitting there, and I showed the picture to Saxony, and I literally didn't think anything of it. I didn't put two and two together.
I knew
that she was talking about the dove story that I shared about how Sax and I were having sex down in Lake Powell, and she had such a great orgasm that she was like, oh my God, I saw fucking doors fly open and doves fly out. We shared that. And so my mom literally had listened to the fucking podcast and sent me a picture of heaven's gates with doves flying out of it. And then I was like, oh my God, my mom listened to the podcast. And so I called her right away. As soon as I saw the text, I called her. I was like, hey, Ma. We were talking, and I was like, so what did you think? She's like, well, it was actually really good. She's like, she said there was a lot of great information. There was a lot of good stuff in there. And I was kind of like, okay, this is a lot better response than I was expecting, And she's like, you shared some things that were, very intense and very personal and whatever. But she's like, it wasn't bad in any way. It wasn't like disgusting or out of line or whatever. So I was like, and my mom was raised in an Irish Catholic family. You got to understand something. My mom is straight laced. Like she's not a wild, crazy hippie chick or whatever. So getting that from my mom, I was like, cool, we're good, right? And then, swear to God, I'm sitting there driving, and she says, but I have a question for you. And I'm like, all right. And I've got her on speakerphone, and Saxony's sitting right next to me. She says to me, what's a butt plug? I swear to God. Sax loses it. Sax fucking loses it laughing. And I'm sitting there like having this moment of my life where I'm like, my 60-something-year-old mother is asking me what a butt plug is. I'm like, how the fuck do I explain to my mom what a butt plug is? And I'm sitting there stumped. I'm like, well, Ma, it's a butt plug. I mean, you never heard of a butt plug? And Sax is literally, she's dying laughing. And I'm looking at Sax like, fucking help me, will you? I'm trying to hand her the phone to talk to my mom. And she just can't stop laughing. She's laughing hysterically. So I like, Ma, just Google it. Just Google it, Ma. She's like, well, I'm not going to Google that. All these porn things
down a rabbit hole.
These porn things are going to show up. And I'm like, Ma, just Google a butt plug and you'll figure out what a butt plug is. Oh my God. So anyways, for those of you that listened, great. Hopefully you learned something. Yeah. And those that didn't, hopefully when you do listen, you learned something. And I'm not surprised that I wasn't tagged in a whole bunch. I'm not surprised that many of you who typically would share our podcast had a little bit of reservation, because we know people watched it. We got great. It was a great feedback. The numbers were phenomenal on the podcast, so we know a ton of you motherfuckers listened to it, but none of you shared it, which is not. I'm not surprised. I mean, it was a pretty.
I feel like the next sex Q&A we do is gonna we're gonna really get some questions, because people are gonna really trust that we're gonna.
I just want all of you out there to imagine trying to explain a butt plug to your mom. I'm a grown ass man. I can stand up in front of 10,000 people and talk about a red Solo cup for an hour and have people laughing and crying. Put me on the spot and have my mom ask me what a butt plug is, and I was like, Google, Mom. Google. Use Google.
My new mother-in-law knows all about me now. It's just it's great.
But I will say this. This is, in hearing her ask me that, we talked about this before we got on.
Yeah.
I realized if my mom, who's, I don't know how old my mom is, 60, almost 70 years old, I think. If my mom doesn't know what a butt plug is, there's probably a lot of people that don't. Mm-hmm. There's probably a lot of people that don't. And that's, as the question was asked, what's your favorite sex toy? Your favorite sex toy is a butt plug.
Yeah.
And so in thinking about it, what Sax and I had talked about, and she helped me feel better about, is like, there's this podcast, we committed to talking about real shit.
Absolutely.
We committed to talking about like our life, where we really are. And it is vulnerable. It is scary. It is like intimidating sometimes to talk about sexting and the things that we talked about, like, and real. We share real conversations, real text messages, like things that we say to each other. And some people would say, oh, that's your intimate life, and you need to keep that private, and you need to keep that intimate, and you need to keep that between the two of you. And there's probably a lot of stuff that we didn't share, that not that we didn't want to, but we just didn't get around to or whatever else. But like one thing that I'm really, really, really aware of, not only in my business, but in our relationship and the questions that we get, is these conversations are not happening in normal, if you will, whatever that means, homes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of couples. I mean, if sex is in sex and infidelity and trouble in that department is the number one cause of divorce, and no one's talking about it, and everybody wants to be politically correct and not talk about sex toys and not talk about, fucking giving head and any of these other things and crazy shit, And perhaps that is why we need to talk about it.
Right. Well, in coaching, I mean, when you coach, you really get a personal insight on where the struggles are. And with you, like you've been coaching for so many years, you do know what's lacking. You have a front row seat to the struggle of marriages and what that is. And this is a big part of it. And
it's a huge thing.
And I love, like, we made a commitment to you guys, and we made a commitment to ourselves. If we're going to do this show, we're going to do it.
Right.
And we're going to be super vulnerable, and we're going to be all in.
Well, and that episode for sure stretched me and helped me. Like, one of the things that I really truly believe in is, if you think about what most people's greatest fear is, like growing up as a kid. Most people have, and this is, again, a general statement, but most people have had, or maybe still have, this reoccurring nightmare of being naked, like in front of the class. When you were a little kid, like you had nightmares of like standing up in front of your peers in school, in class, and you were naked. And you had the nightmare of being naked, right? Some people have nightmares about public speaking, whatever it is. Like, the way that I look at life, and I think this is the reason we're capable of doing a podcast where we talk about stuff, and maybe there's tons of people that talk about shit like that. I don't know. I don't know about it. I don't see it. I don't hear about it. But, like, you only have to get up in front of the class naked one time before you're not scared of it anymore.
Yep.
And once you get up in front of the class, friends, and you get naked, all right, cool. Now you know what I'm playing with. Now I know how this feels. Cool, I can do this again.
Yeah.
And then I can do it again. And then I can do it again. And one of the things that I firmly believe in, and this goes back to the conversation about sex, this goes back to that podcast, is it's that awkwardness, it's that fear of that conversation that keeps us from having the conversation. It's the fear of going to the sex store with our significant other, our lover. It's the fear of talking about crazy shit, ideas, desires, fantasies that keep us from doing it.
Yeah.
And it's literally the fear of being naked in front of the class that keeps us hiding. It keeps us in the back row. It keeps us quiet. It keeps us from being all in. And so for me, I realized that, like, if that's what I'm scared of, if that's something that's a fear of mine, I want to go do it. Because the more I do it, the less I fear it. And so to take from this, a lesson, I strongly encourage you guys. I mean, it was scary for me, which is why I know we needed to do it and we needed to have the conversation. And some of those questions were pretty fucking, they were all in. It was like, yo, we can't dance around this one. We got to talk about it, right? But I strongly encourage you guys to understand that, like, those conversations, knowing how troublesome, if you will, or how big of a problem sex is in this country, and not in a problem way that sex is actually a problem, but the lack of communication, the lack of connection, the lack of empathy that partners have for each other, the lack of desire, like the lack of trust that you have with a partner to really talk about what's inside of you and what you want and what you dream about and what you fantasize over and what you want to adventure with and what you want to experience. That's what's causing so much of the problem.
Yeah.
And so, I can't emphasize this enough. Hearing my mom say that about butt plugs, it was funny and we laughed and it was like, what the fuck do I say to my mom about a butt plug besides Google it? But I realized in that moment, if this lady who's been around the block for a long fucking time, she's been alive for a long time, doesn't know this, there's probably a fuck ton of people that have a very, very, very limited scope of sex and what's possible in sex and what's cool and fun and adventurous in sex. And so
I love what you said about empathy. Like, I've thought about that a lot, and came up a lot in our questions. It was like, there's this wall between partners instead of these open-ended questions. Like, if your husband wants you to suck his dick, instead of having a predetermined rule or like this around it, look at any other area of your life. If your husband brings you something, like, have that trust, like you said, in the relationship, to where you ask open-ended questions. Okay, what does that look like to you? Like, why do you like that? Like, really care enough about your partner. Just get curious about why they desire something. Because a lot of it's so interesting. It's like, my husband fucks me like he's in a porn, but I draw the line with porn. It's like, then just have a conversation of why he fucks you like that. Like, this communication of, And I know I said in the last podcast, but that living in a full abundance with your partner, like I tell Sean all the time, like literally, this is my favorite playground. The relationship of us to get to go in and say like, let's have so much abundance, not just in, finances and in family and all this stuff, but in with sexuality, like let's encourage that out of our marriage, because why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Not today's topic.
Yeah. It was, it's just interesting, friends. Like, I this weekend, I mean, being all in, like it's something that keeps coming up for me. It's something that I realize I get more messages than I can even explain. There's some days where I literally will get a couple hundred messages between Facebook and Instagram from people. And I try and be attentive to like the pulse of people, and like when certain things keep coming up, when certain questions are asked by people from all over the country that are not affiliated with each other, they're not hanging out together, but it's like a similar theme and a similar reality, I start to look at that and go, okay, this is probably a bigger thing. This is probably bigger than just, Bob Johnson from Timbuktu asking me, and then Sally from whatever asked. It's like, okay, there's a lot of people asking the same questions and wanting to know the same things. Perhaps there's more to this. Perhaps there's a lot of people that are thinking about this or wanting to do this. And yeah, I mean, you and I being in this space, it's like, for whatever that's worth, using social media to share our lives, to share what we do, I'm grateful for it, but I can't emphasize enough to people to really understand, like, you've only got one shot at this. Like there's no do-over in this life thing, right? There's no do-over in that part of my life sucked, let me start it over. It's like, you've got today. That's it. Yeah. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not. We had some great conversations with our friends in New York. Michael and our friends Michael and Michelle, they just had a baby, and we were talking about real stuff over dinner. We were like, you're starting to think about wills and estates, and if you die, where does your kid go, and who's going to raise your kid, and life insurance and all these other things. And they're all things that maybe a lot of you talk about, but maybe a lot of you don't. These are real conversations that have serious weight, you know. But at the end of the day, it's like, all we have is today. It's literally all we've got. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I'm so adamant about being all in is not because it's like I have anything to prove to anybody, because a lot of it scares me. Like, a lot of it is intimidating to me. A lot of it's vulnerable to me. Like, sharing what we shared, you get on a roll and we start talking, then all of a sudden you think about it, you're like, fuck, I have never shared any of that shit with complete fucking strangers on a podcast. And then I start questioning, well, why am I doing that? Am I doing that out of ego? Am I doing that because I want to, like, prove to everybody how great my sex life is? Or is it something that just scares me? And truly. It scares me. And I'm like, you know what? I want to be a better lover. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better business leader. I want to be a better business owner. I want to be a better son. And I have found that as I do those things that scare me, like, I just get better at doing scary shit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live my life in fear, man. I don't want to live my life. And I pray you guys hear this. Like, you live your life in fear. You live your life hiding. You live your life sexually just sedated and closed off. All of a sudden, you're going to get to a place in life where you're like, fuck, man. Why was I playing so small? Mm-hmm. And it takes maybe somebody dying. It takes maybe a death of a friend, or, in an instant they're gone, or some other type of cataclysmic event to really understand, like, holy shit, this ain't guaranteed. Like, I need to be all in with my wife, and that might be uncomfortable for 15 minutes, but after that, we're good. Mm-hmm. Cool. What's the next level? What's the next level? What's the next level? How far can we go? How big can we go? How much deeper can we go?
Yeah.
But anyways.
So many people die long before they leave this earth.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they wall themselves in and just become so, I don't know, like they just become so closed up to what life has to offer.
Yeah. That kind of leads into what we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Being
all in is
anything else you want to talk about with sex, babe?
I could have an entire podcast.
Hey, will you do me a favor? Will you please call my mom and talk to her about butt plugs because I can't do it. I told her to go to Google, but I just can't do that.
She knows.
I mean, let me rephrase that. I can.
Her son.
It's just not a conversation I want to have with my mom. Like, Mom, let's talk about Jesus and, vacations and shit like that. Not butt plugs. You know what I mean?
I would be happy. I honestly would be happy if I found out my very adult son. I have a kind of adult son. I would not want to hear this, but in his 40s, I'd be very proud that he has a very abundant sex life.
Robust sex life
with his wife. I'd be all right with that.
Can you imagine my mom listening to that podcast?
Yes,
What the fuck was she thinking?
I said, Joan, it says sex with Sean and Sax.
But here's the
we
thing.
didn't have to tell you not to listen to it.
You know that if we'd have called and said, don't listen to it, the first thing she would have done is fucking listen to it. It's not like she's not going to. Oh, God.
Makes for a good laugh.
You know what? This is a challenge. Let's have everybody take a challenge. You guys up for a challenge? All of you this Thanksgiving, over Thanksgiving dinner, should replicate the podcast and start talking about your sex life with your family, in front of your family. That's a terrible idea.
Thanksgiving's already awkward. Cool. You should just do it. Fuck it.
You should just do it, period. Invite everybody over, say, look, let's have a conversation. Anything else you want to say on that, babe?
Babe, I told you we could keep rolling, but we should go on to a new topic.
So we talked about, and this is good. This was good. One of the things that came up quite a bit over the weekend, and I don't know when you guys are listening to this. This is what's weird about doing a podcast. Like, somebody might be listening to this 10 years from now, and we're already light years beyond a certain event and period of time. But one of the things that we've talked about, which has been coming up, and we did a podcast on this a while ago. I think the title of it was "Getting Your House in Order." Was about really planting your flag, and being connected and together as a couple and as a family on the direction that you're going, what you're doing, who you are, where you stand. There's a lot of confusion right now. There are a lot of people and a lot of families and a lot of men and a lot of women that are really, really, really fucking uncertain about what they're doing, where they're going, what our intentions are. And one of the things that we have been really adamant about as a family is, creating maps, having real candid conversation about where we're going, what we're doing, not only from a tangible plan. We talked about this in Getting Your House in Order, but literally having a plan as a family, right? We're both divorced. We both have kids with other people and other quote unquote family. We'll just say they're family, right?
Yeah.
But I have a plan with my ex-wife and our kids and her husband. If the shit was to hit the fan, here's what we're going to do. Right. Here's what we're doing as a family, right? So not only from that logistical standpoint, but one of the things that I am seeing and finding prevalent, it's incredibly prevalent in the marketplace, is with all of the things coming at us, and things, I mean, social media, mainstream media, education system, kids are going back to school now. There are so many fucking influences pulling you one way or another, or this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what you can say, this is what you can't say. I watched a Jordan Peterson video yesterday where there was all of these fucking quote-unquote woke people telling him that because they wanted him to say something, that he needed to say something a certain way. And he's
really
no, I don't need to say that. I don't have to say that. You want me to say that. Yeah. And he's like, that's where I draw the line, is you telling me what I can and can't say. And then he's like, it was the whole thing with legislation in Canada about the pronouns and all that other bullshit, and legal and literally creating laws around pronouns and whatever. And he's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to say whatever I want to say. That's the First Amendment. That's the freedom. And we share this because I truly believe our family, having our own declaration, our own proclamation as a family of where we're going, what we're doing, where we stand. There's a lot of influences that are coming and that will continue to come. But if there's ever been a time in history, in my history, in my 42 years on this earth, of needing to have a foundation as a family, a foundation as a couple, a foundation as a father and being able to really plant my flag of what my beliefs are, like what I really truly embody in my soul, the direction that I'm going, it's now. I mean, especially being a father of 2 teenagers, well, 3 teenagers.
I was like, we got more than that,
I got 3
honey.
teenagers and 2 younger kids. Like I can't stress enough how important the communication is. Yeah. And not just communicating to your kids and to your family and to your lover about like, yeah, well, here's what I think about Afghanistan, or here's what I think about, you know, the vaccine, or here's what I think about this or this or this or this, but what you truly embody, like what you truly believe. Yeah. And we see more and more and more every single day, as the good book says, people toss to and fro with every wind of doctrine. You know, it's really not surprising that there is so much turmoil in the American family, in the family period. Right. The family unit period. It's not surprising to see so much disarray and so many kids that are unhappy and on drugs, and mom and dads that are separated, and not just separated physically but emotionally, psychologically, because they don't even know who they are, let alone what they are as a couple or as a unit. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, this morning, like Sean and I, we talk a lot about shiny pennies. At least Sean does in his coaching. It's like we live in a land of opportunity. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's also can be a very difficult thing because there's so many opportunities. There's so many choices. I mean, we live in a swipe culture. We live in you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And you really, if you don't have a very simple plan of action in your own brain when it starts with you're going to be in chaos. Your family's going to be in chaos if your family doesn't have a plan of where we're going,
your notes, dear.
A plan of where we're going as a family and where we're going as a society. It's like if you're living in this, well, what if we can do all these things? You know, like Sean and I we're making a plan of where we're going to build. Like we could do this, you know. And this morning we planted that. It's like the more I've realized that simple is more, the more it's like we just cut it down. It's like weeding out, you know, the dead branches. We just get down to simplifying, and we accomplish so much more when things are just simple.
Like we're in the process now, just to give you an example to further what you're talking about. We obviously just got married. Everybody knows we just got married, and Sax moved into the house that I'm in. And it's just not our house. We've kind of known it. We've felt it. The energy's not there. And you know, it's a beautiful home. We're extraordinarily fucking blessed.
For sure.
But, you know, now the market is through the fucking roof. It's insane. We went and looked at a house the other day. Asking price was like $1 million. And
it went for 50% over.
Yeah. It was, what, 1.5?
Yeah. Went for 1.5.
What was, 1.5 million is what it ended up going for within like 24 hours of them starting to take offers on it. Yeah. It's just absolutely insane. You know, but we also bought the ranch, and so we've been talking about building on the ranch and have a lot of things going. And this morning, to give you guys an example of what we're talking about, is, you know, we have a lot of opportunities. The businesses are growing, we're growing, our family's growing, kids are back to school, football's growing. My daughter's out in, I think, Oklahoma right now at, this is such an interesting thing to say, at her boyfriend's graduation. He's graduating from a certain class, a certain thing that he did in the military.
Yeah. Got a kid going to college this week.
Yeah, he's Tyne's going to college, and so there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of things happening, right? And one of the things that we've been talking about is, you know, moving and getting a new house, getting a house for us, and doing the ranch. And so we sat down this morning, and we're like, these are all of the things that need to happen on the ranch. There's a lot of shit that has to go on this ranch, right? And believe me, we're not complaining in any way, but this illustrates like us getting really simple and planting a really simple flag and having a course that we're all in the same direction on. You know, I've been feeling overwhelmed because we're trying to build the businesses, we're trying to build the ranch, and I'm trying to find a house, and we're trying to decide where do we want to build, you know, buy a house, this, that, and the other. We just had the conversation this morning, like, look, what are we doing? Like, where do we need to be? Like, what is our short-term goal here in conjunction with what we're doing long-term? Yeah. And it was fun because I was able to share like where I'm at, where I'm like, look, there's a lot of shit happening in our life right now. And I'm pretty sure every single one of you listening to this has a lot of shit going on. Doesn't matter if you're single, if you're married, if you got 2 kids, 10 kids, it doesn't fucking matter. Everybody has a lot of shit going on, right? And sitting down and having the conversation, saying, here's some other ideas and some other options. Like, what's the most important to us? Like, where do we need to be right now to make sure that we keep the train moving forward, that we stay on the tracks, that we're not bringing on so many things, or maybe you're over here thinking about ranch, I'm thinking about a house, or vice versa, so on and so forth. And it really helped having this conversation to plant our flag and say, look, here's where we are right now. Like, maybe buying a house right now, it's been on the docket, it's been on the conversation. That might not be the right thing. We live in a beautiful home. Energetically, we know that this isn't really our home. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. This isn't like our dream home, or where, you know what I mean, the ideal situation for us. But it's not a bad situation. So let's just reevaluate this. And I feel like it created a lot of clarity in the sense that we both got on the same page. You know, we know where the market is. We know what's going on. But us being able to be, and a lot of people might view this as just simple communication, but being energetically and moving in the same direction, going after the same things is really, really, really crucial, especially right now. Yeah. Especially right now with so much going on and so much chaos outside of the home, so much going on in the marketplace and jobs and mandates and blah, 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 and vaccinations and the whole deal. Something as simple as sitting down as a family and planting that flag and saying, okay, is this really where we want to be? We think it is, or it might not be, but where do we want to be? And having a really open, candid conversation about that, it changed the game.
And what I noticed happening was a lot of assumptions being made of like, oh, well, you know, she probably wants to get the house because she's brought it up, and he probably, you know, and this whole thing. And like, truly, at the end of the day, Sean and I are always on the same page,
right?
Because we choose to be. Like, we're both very, very opinionated, driven alpha people, which we can go on our own course really, really well. But at the end of the day, we're always on the same page. But when we have all these opportunities and all this noise, we truly, like, the bandwidth of what we want to really accomplish becomes so clogged up. We don't have the bandwidth to do what the true mission is. And so when we started looking at houses and we're trying to build a ranch, and we're talking, should we build, should we do yurts, should we do this, should we do this? And it's like, that conversation this morning was so simple, because at the end of the day, we trust each other, and as long as we have that communication of like, okay, what do we really want? What do we really want? And what we really want is our ranch built, period. So we cut off, we planted our flag that we're not going to buy a house. Done. So we're not going to talk about it. It's not going to be assumed that the other person wants something. That way now we're full throttle on building our ranch, which ultimately is what we want anyways. Right. The house thing would have been temporary anyways. But it was just, it's those simple conversations of getting down to just precise, here's what we want. And it's like, like simplification. Everybody thrives when things are simply laid out.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I think helps illustrate like what we're talking about. But the truth is taking that even further, like with the kids and stuff like that. Yeah. I've noticed how important it is, you know, for me, just speaking personally, not you, but like simplifying my own personal life, simplifying my communication. I've been really, really, really open with my kids recently. I've always been open with my kids, but I've made it a point to be open and talking about what's going on and talking about where I am with things. And I think this is really important, especially for the men listening to this. You know, being the patriarch of the family, don't get butt sore about that conversation, that word, and think that it's some sort of like unruly king dictatorship. But without question, being the leader of your family, like there's probably never been a more important time for you to be able to get your own fucking house in order, to get your shit straight, to get your mind, your body, your money, your business, your direction, your vision. Because I know at the end of the day, like, you and I are together. You and I are headed in the same direction. We're always on the same page. But I also know too, like, that conversation this morning, like, we had that and I'm like, yo, here's exactly where I'm at. Like, this is really what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. I think this is the best decision for the family right now. And it wasn't like, yo, fuck you in the house, fuck any of this other shit. But I felt like you have enough trust in
Yeah.
me and trust in me having my house in order that it was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I see that. Like, let's move that way, right? And this is something that I think is very, very, very important, especially today with dads leading their children and being able to be that same, planting the flag, being the sounding board, being, like my son called the other day, and it's just weird. Like, there's some politics going on the football team, and he's not starting. Like, he's got his first game today. Anyways, I'm not going to turn it into a big political thing, but there was some politics with the coach and the coach's kid, and all the other coaches are like, yo, your son's like the best linebacker that we've got. Like, we're not really sure why this is going on, whatever. And Will called me, and he was all worked up. He was kind of bummed about it. He was upset. He was half bummed, half pissed off, and the whole thing. And it wasn't like, yo, fuck this. Let's call the coach. I was like, look, man, you got to go out on the field and prove yourself. Period. End of story. End of story. You can't leave this up to chance. You can't leave it up to a political vote. You got to go out and ensure that your flag is planted that you were the baddest motherfucker on that team. Period. End of story. So even if you get half a game to play, or if you get a quarter to play, or whatever, you need to spike that ball, no pun intended, so fucking hard that there is no question where you are, who you are, that you are the number one fucking kid on this team to have on the field. And I think that, that's how I live. That's how I operate. Like, that's how we roll. And, we'll see what happens obviously today with the game. But, the communication, planting your flag, having that course, like being in the same, having the same conversation and truly being all in with where you're at. I mean, I hate to beat the horse to death, but like with what's going on in the world today, it's not a terrible thing. It's not the best thing, but it is so fucking important.
Yeah.
It is so fucking important.
That's a really good metaphor for life, because right now, even if you are the best or whatnot, there is someone over you that's telling you and dictating how you must live. And you can choose to buy into that because that's, the position on the team that you've been given. Or you can just go and thrive.
Right.
And the choice is always yours.
Right.
And the simplification of things is just like keeping your mind right, truly, like keeping your mind right, keeping your plan right, and staying the course. And not letting outside circumstances dictate where you're going in life and who you become in life and how you feel in life. Because, you look at now, it's like, step back and we look at the last year, and it's like we lost a lot of conveniences. And by losing, it's like flying commercial. When you won't go a certain direction because that's what you're being told, you won't obey or however you want to interpret that, you lose privileges, or you pivot and you make new opportunities like we've done. Does it come with a higher expense? Yep. Does it come with, more strategic moves or more, whatever that may be? Yes, but you can still live your life according to how you choose to live it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what Will's doing right now.
My challenge to you guys in this, and not that we need to challenge you, but like, every one of you fellas and ladies listening to this, is to get your own house in order first.
Yeah.
Like I know that we are where we are right now, not because we're, trying to feed off of each other and need each other kind of a deal. Like, we've been very, very, very adamant about getting our own shit together. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I work on every single day. When I wake up every single day, it's not how do I best serve my family or how do I help you today. It's how do I make me the best version of me today. And I'll take every single action and take every single step and do everything necessary to get me to 100%. So then I can serve my family. Then I can lead. Then I can have the connection with you and my kids. And then the second part of that is unifying your family. Yeah. Like if again, going to the patriarch conversation, if this is where I am as an individual, that's where my family should be. That's what leadership truly is not dictating to people how they should live and this is what it should look like but lead. Get yourself right, get your mind right, get your body right, get your finances right, get you right. You're doing the same thing.
For sure.
And then you and I come together and then we steer the ship, if you will, with our children, with our businesses, with our circles, however you want to look at that. But there's no doubt about it. Like, I know exactly like what we're doing, where we're going, how we're building it, and at the end of the day, it creates a lot of calmness, man.
Yeah,
in a world of chaos, like I've never been more calm. I've never been more calm and more concise and more clear on who I am, what we are, where we are, the direction that we're going. It's really interesting because there's so much chaos in the world. There's so much chaos in families and in marriages and in businesses and conversations. I mean, fuck, I was sitting at the gym this morning, literally just listening to dudes talking about Afghanistan. I was in the fucking sauna and there's dudes here and there's dudes over there, there's dudes outside, and everybody is just on this. Everybody's like, dude, this is insane, it's madness, and what about this? And everybody that I'm just sitting there and they're talking about it and this group's talking about it and that group's talking about it. And it's like I'm just sitting in my own little corner doing my thing, stretching, getting ready to go work out. I'm like calm as a cucumber, and here's a bunch of grown-ass men just completely fucking worked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a really good metaphor for what's going on in the world right now is like an ocean. You know, you're standing in the ocean and the waves keep crashing, they keep crashing. That will continue to be, because it's like the buzz and the fear has to continually be there. And when people, I've just noticed that when people start to like adjust and settle into something, a new wave of drama, of bullshit has been being fed to us. Right. And it's like, do you choose to keep letting that wave crash you, like take you? Or do you get so strong and to where you're really good in your own shoes, and because you've simplified to the point where you've planted your flag where the waves don't take you out? Because people just buy into the drama. People love drama. And I think it's because when there's a lot of this external drama, it distracts them from the internal drama, right? It's like when you can talk about all this stuff going on, they like don't have to look at their own shit. And we see it everywhere. And part of like, you know, like the masks and all this stuff going on, there's so much drama, and if you bought into that, you could become completely intoxicated in sickness. Like it's crazy out there. Yeah. And this is like it's funny, like we have days where it's just like, yeah, the world could be on fire. There could literally be zombies out there coming, and it's like, we're ready. Zombies, like, okay.
Seriously. Okay. What do we have to do for that to happen? Seriously, like, I was joking.
That's the third round of the vaccine.
Like, please, like, I would. Anyways,
oh gosh,
I don't want to go off on that. But yeah, if anybody does happen to find zombies or your town is taken over by zombies, please call me. Shoot me slide up in the DMs. Let me know. I'll be over right away. I'll bring a couple of my buddies. We'll have a freaking heyday. Yeah. Anyways, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. Plant your flag, man. Get your house in order. Get your mind right, get your family right, make sure that you're talking about sex toys with your family so your mom doesn't ask you odd questions. But really, like, to cap this off, like, there's never been a more amazing fucking time to be alive. There's never been a time like this to where we have so much data and so much access to freedom. Literally, like, I don't mean it to come across like we're bragging or whatever, but there are so many fucking options. There is so much possibility, and there are so many things at your fingertips, at my fingertips, as we speak. Yeah. Where you go, how your ship is sailing is completely up to you. If it's in the fucking middle of the storm, you got to make some changes and stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, this last year, while the world has quote unquote been on fire, crumbling around, has been my greatest year ever. Yeah, I've made more financial advance. I've made more personal advance. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm married. We got a thriving family. The businesses are exploding with growth. And I truly attribute that to me planting my flag, being like, yo, I'm sailing my ship. I'm taking care of me. I'm going to be selfish, and I'm going to get me right, my mind right, my body right. And, you know, speaking from myself, the results have shown themselves. So, anyways. Anything else, baby girl?
No, I love it.
All right, we go text my mom now and talk to her about this butt plug stuff, because it's just, we brought it up, and I feel like we need to have that conversation. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please like, comment, share. We truly appreciate it. We got a ton of questions last week on the Q&A. Yeah. We really vibe with the Q&As. We should do more of the Q&As. Oh, yeah. Love answering questions, but it also causes or helps us to address things that we might not otherwise address. So keep them coming. Thanks, guys. We love you. See ya.